Welcome to the first in our series of short 5-minute bites of the book of Revelation. Today, we're going to take a bite out of the number of the beast, possibly the most infamous part of the Christian tradition, picked up by heavy metal bands, Hollywood, end times writers. I feel like I need to give a bit of a disappointment disclaimer though, because the truth, what it really means, is a lot more plain and simple, certainly less epic, less horrific and terrifying than it's been made out to be. So join with me, we're going to jump in and have a look. We'll look at exactly what's written in the book of Revelation. Then we're going to go back to the references that John's vision is drawing on from the Old Testament. And we'll be able to hear and understand it the way the first century believers, those who would have received this letter at the time, would have understood it. So it begins Revelation chapter 13. In chapter 12, we've had the rise of the dragon who lost his war with Michael the archangel, was hurled to the earth. And then, out of spite, draws two beasts up to terrorize and deceive the world. A beast from the sea and a second beast out of the earth, where we come from, the dust of the earth. That beast causes the mark of the beast to be required. So we're going to jump in there. So it's Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. He, that beast, also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand and on his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. His number is 666. So it's both the number of the beast and the number of man. The first thing we need to notice here is where people receive the mark of the beast. They get it on their hand and on their forehead. Well, for the Jews, this symbolism was obvious. They've been given some commands that relate to what they bear on their hand and their forehead. And to understand those, we're going to go back to the book of Deuteronomy. So one of the books of the law of Moses. And we're going to begin in Deuteronomy chapter 6, and then we'll look at a linked scripture in Deuteronomy 11. So Deuteronomy chapter 6 here, Moses is recording the words of God to Israel as he's starting to structure their society, give them some rules for living. And he begins with a pretty important one. So it's Deuteronomy chapter 6. We're going to read verses 4 to 8. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. And similarly, if we just come over a couple of chapters to chapter 11, and verse 18, we find the same command repeated. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your houses and your gates. The Jews took this really literally. They would actually write and roll up and tiny print the word of the Lord, the law, and they'd put it in small boxes called phylacteries. And they'd tie these phylacteries on their hands and bind them on their foreheads and use them essentially as like a meditative device, like a form of rosary, I suppose, in some ways, for when they pray, when they meditate on the law. And so very literally, the Jews had the word of the Lord bound on their hand and on their forehead. So if you've had centuries of that tradition, then you come to John's vision, and we're told that the mark of the beast is going to be on people's hands and foreheads. It's really clear what it's picking up. It's a contrast to the commands of the Lord. Well, what do our hands and our foreheads symbolize? All through Scripture, the metaphor is really clear. Our hands are our actions. This is what I do with my life, my actions, the action I take. My mind is my thoughts. And so all that's going on with the mark of the beast is whose thoughts are marked for you. Do your thoughts and your actions bear the mark of God, His way, His character? Or do our thoughts and actions bear the mark of this deceptive beast that draws us to awe, to distraction in its architecture? That's really it. It's as simple as that. Now there is another thing that's going on, because remember, it's the 666 is the number of the beast, but it's also the number of man. And there's a really cool thing going on here. In the Jewish, the Hebrew and Greek alphabets, They had a numeric code where numbers corresponded to the letters, much like we did when I was kids. We have 26 letters in the English alphabet. You can number them 1 to 26, and you could write insults to your friend. Hey, you're a 5, 17, 14, 6, 12. And they have to match up the numbers to find out what's going on. This is like that. And interestingly, and using the Greek alphabet, if you write Nero or Caesar Nero, Nero was the Caesar that was terrorizing the church in that first century, feeding them to the lions, rounding them up at night, lighting them literally on fire as living Roman candles. And so this is Nero, who is persecuting them aggressively. And they're under the terror of this ruler. Well, if you write Nero or Caesar Nero using, it's called the gematria, or gematria, I'm probably butchering its name, this numeric system, his name numerically adds up to 666. Interesting side note, if you use the Latin version of his name, it adds up to 616. And in some of the most ancient manuscripts, the oldest translations we have of the book of Revelation, the number of the beast is recorded as 616. It's a bit like, to understand what's going on here, the ancient blues tradition of the African American slaves using their music to cope with their experience. And so they'd write these songs about how they've been so mistreated by their woman. But it's actually their slave owner, the masters they're talking about, and their colonizers. And if they'd written it really explicitly what was going on, they're in for a beating. So they hide it. It's subversive. It's hidden in the lyrics of the ancient blues music. This is like that. This is a subversive way of saying the mark of the beast is that leader who's terrorizing us. It's Caesar. And just like all of the leaders have terrorized the children of God through history, that leader's going to fall. That's what's going on. Final side note, a bit of a PPS. The number of the beast, 666, is in the Bible 4 times. 3 of them are in the Old Testament. One's in New, the book of Revelation. In the Old Testament references, one of them's in the book of Ezra, and it's literally just the number of descendants that one person had. In 1 Kings chapter 10 and 2 Chronicles chapter 9, it's the weight of gold that Solomon earned as his income every year. It was 666 shekels of gold. Today, that's estimated as being like 23 tons of gold every single year. It's like 23 metric tons. It's piles of gold. I have no idea what that would amount to. It's incomprehensible to us. So there does seem to be some link with that number of 666 and being the deception of the beast, tying it to our materialism, our accumulation of wealth, our link to material power, our reliance on that instead of the provision of God. So there's a small link there, but the key thing that's going on is whose mark do our thoughts and our actions bear? The mark of the character and way of God, or the mark of the beast? And then the subversive note, like that ancient blues tradition, calling out Nero Caesar as the beast. And that beast is going to fall. Hope that's been helpful. See you again soon.